Damo, thank you so much for joining us here. Great to have you. And
good to see you again, by the way, Damo. Thanks for joining us again.
And he's asking, did the church have an ecclesiastical hierarchy?
Ecclesiastical hierarchy.
And I'm presuming you're referring to the early church, right? During like the first 100 years when we had like Peter and John, James, all the apostles leading it.
That's kind of what I'm thinking too. And I mean, the Bible talks about there being deacons and bishops. So there definitely was, positions in the church. And there was, the 12 apostles, and, there was, in a sense, there was definitely it was an organized body of Christians, but, it's one Lord, one faith, one baptism, at the same time. So, and I do believe there should be organization in the church, but at the same time,
and maybe for our viewers, you guys can define, for those who don't know, what an ecclesiastical hierarchy is, because I think there's probably a lot of people that may not know what that is.
It's basically ecclesia is basically it comes from the Greek word that basically means church body, congregation. So when we talk about ecclesiastical matters, we're talking about church-based matters.
So then this is essentially describing a church hierarchy.
Right.
Yeah.
And so as Tana mentioned, there was, bishops, deacons, all that. And then we do see, for example, in Acts where there were important doctrinal issues to be sorted out, that then there would be like delegates from all over would come together and they will have a meeting to discuss it. And we're told in that meeting, James, for example, one of them, James was the sort of the chair of that session. A lot of people think that, for example, like Peter was the one who early on ran the church, and nope, here we saw James for once, sort of acting as it. So we don't know exactly how all the time the 12 would split up duties, or if Peter would be over them or not, but we do see issues, for example, like that one where James was the chair. So
right.
Thank you for asking.
Mm-hmm.
And if you need more clarification on that, please let us know what you're thinking in regards to that question so we can answer it.
But I also add one thing too, that, I don't know if hierarchy is the right word, but you always do see structure it being a biblical concept. So like when the Hebrews exited Egypt, there was a hierarchy that was put in place with Jethro helping Moses, because Moses was just being overwhelmed. He was getting so many cases and petitions, and I can't handle it here. Just all day he's sitting there and dealing cases. And Jethro was like, dude, what are you doing, Moses? You need to have, like the families, the tribes, whatever, work out issues from within, and easy matters are done at a very local level. And then if it's appeal, they could go to a smarter person who's over more people, and ultimately then it will end up at you. And also eventually you have Moses praying or working with God so that his part of his spirit was the Holy Spirit that was on Moses was then given out to 70 elders. And then they were also going to help with the management of the church. So it just makes sense. And anybody who runs a business knows if you're going to scale your business, you have to start offloading duties and responsibilities from yourself as a business owner. Otherwise, you're going to be crushed. You only have so many hours in the day for yourself to be able to do things. So there has to be a way of establishing accountability, of delegating duties out, and that sort of thing. So that is a very biblical concept, having this order.
And I think the other important component of that too is that a lot of people think of a hierarchy as, because in our mainstream world, it is a system of control, and it also comes with a system of oppression oftentimes, where those higher up the hierarchy are more free, and those lower down it are more controlled and constrained and viewed as lesser. But in God's system, that is not so much the case. In fact, it's very different from that, because God puts at the top those who are the most loving, those who are the most gracious, those who are covering over and supporting and not covering over in a bad sense, but in a redemptive sense, they have, those at higher up have a greater responsibility for those that are within their flock, so to speak.
And I got a verse on that. That's let's look at Mark 10 verse 44. And maybe you could read that, Wendy. Mark 10 verse 44.
Yeah, and it says, "And whosoever of you will be the chiefest shall be servant of all." Or slave of all.
Or in the New King James Version, whoever you desire to be first shall be slave of all.
Yeah, and this is such the opposite of what we so often see in the mainstream, where essentially the lower down, the more of a slave people are made, when that's not how it's supposed to be. They are those higher up have a duty to serve those who are, quote unquote, below them in the hierarchy. It is to uplift those people, which is a completely different dynamic than what we typically see.
Exactly. Yeah, no, and so that's why I said I was hesitant to use the word hierarchy, because that has a lot of that connotation to it. But structure and order is a biblical concept. But this concept of lordship, of people really controlling and all that over other people, is not a biblical concept. And yes, there should be submission to those who are higher in position, but those people in higher position have a higher duty of love to take care of the people below them. So it's same thing like the man-woman relationship in a marriage. So the woman might submit to the man, but the man has a higher duty to love her and take care of her. And it's because of that the wife can then trust the man wholly and depend on him. So there's these nuances here that unfortunately get lost, or I should say more so that Satan corrupts to make the church often what it should not be, and be more in the image of Satan rather than the image of God.
Yeah, absolutely.